Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining us today on our webinar and getting started with Eagle. Part one. Today we're going to be working with Eagle up to the schematic editor, and later in the month I'll go ahead and do the second part of the webinar, which would be doing the library editor. Doing the board layout editor. The reason I like to break it up in two pieces is that if not, it becomes a long, drawn-out webinar, and that's not what we want to do. We're trying to make them as short as possible. First of all, my name is Edwin Robledo. I'm part of the Autodesk support team, and I primarily only work with Eagle, so I'm an Eagle specialist. I have been able to do some support with Fusion 360 as well, as we have progressed. Eagle and Fusion 360 have such a nice bidirectional workflow, but I mainly am a specialist for Eagle at this time, at this moment. Okay. Now, I just wanted to give you an overview. For those of you that are kind of new to Eagle, I just want to give you a slight overview of Eagle and its platform. Eagle is actually a platform that contains multiple workspaces. The primary workspaces is the schematic, the board layout, as well as the outer and the library editor. Now, the electronic schematic is the in essence where you can actually put together your logical representation of the functionality of your circuit board. So on the schematic editor, you're not really taking into consideration the physical aspects of the circuit board, not at all. Maybe some placement, but that's only for convenience purposes, not so much for electronic purposes, not yet. Working on the schematic. The other editor we have is the board layout editor. Board layout editor and the schematic editor in Eagle, they actually work in real time together. That's what we call forward and back annotation. Modifications actually being performed to the board layout editor will back annotate to the schematic, but we always prefer that you actually make the modifications to the schematic, like changing components, updating the libraries, as well as adding or deleting components. It needs to be done on the schematic. That way the board layout could catch up. And last but not least, later in the month, I'll be doing a webinar only on the library sections and that platform, because that platform actually consists of multiple editors as well. Okay. Now, I'm going to go over the control panel, give you just an overview of how the control panel looks like, how to take advantage of this control panel, and then from the control panel, we'll go ahead and create a brand new project. From that new project, we'll go ahead and create a brand new schematic, and then on that schematic, we'll add our frame, add our components, define our connections. We'll run ERC, and from that point on, we'll go ahead and create a brand new board. Then we'll finish the webinar there, and we're hoping to be able to do this within, we'll try to keep it within under 20 minutes or less, okay? So I won't be going too fast because it's a simple design example that we're going to be using today. Okay, so I have already put my email on the chat. For those of you that are new, I will go ahead and put my email address again on the chat later on. That way you can email me if you have any questions after the webinar is done. So let me just go ahead and stop the PowerPoint. And let's go to the control panel. Now the control panel has two tabs right here. It has our preview tab and your home tab. The very, very first time that you actually install Eagle, you're always going to come and have the home tab open. Now, if you change from the home tab to the preview tab, the home tab will not open up by default again, okay? So if you want to get the latest news and the latest tutorials of Eagle, always check the home tab in the Eagle control panel. Here you'll get the latest news that we have. You get our links to register for our up and coming webinars. Please don't miss out on the one on Thursday, which we'll be talking about more on Eagle 9.5. I don't see the link here, but if you go to our website and you go to our learning center, I'm sure the link is there. It's intended for September 5th. Also, you will also find it on social media. We'll be posting it as well. Okay. Also, if you export any step files from Eagle, when you export step files in Eagle, that's a cloud-based algorithm. Therefore, it takes a few seconds to run. And while it's running and when it's completed, it actually will put the file right here. It actually puts right here. That way you can go ahead and download it or delete it if you've actually exported the step file. So there's some really good information here on the control panel. Also, you get the information about the latest blogs right here as well. The most recent blog that we actually just worked on is the Eagle 9.5, that we could get all the details, everything that's brand new with Eagle 9.5 as well, okay? Now, there's a few parts here in the control panel that you could use as a preview. First of all is our libraries. Now we have shared libraries. We call it shared. We call it manage folders, in which you could join. You log into library.io. You could create a managed folder and share it. In this case here, I have a managed folder in which Jorge has created and made me a member of it. So I'm just a member of this folder, which was created by Jorge. And this is just an example because we were doing it. Managed libraries are the libraries in Eagle, in which we have many of them. These are our default libraries, and many of these libraries do have the 3D models already associated to it. These libraries are here locally, but when you go to your library management system, you could actually update the libraries if necessary. And my own particular libraries that I have worked on are here, right? So we have our Spark Fun libraries, we have our from Adafruit Lemur Fry libraries, and these are my managed libraries that I've actually created and worked with. These are managed libraries. So these libraries I have created, I've managed them, I've done 3D models to it, and I have them in a way that it's managed. That way I could access them remotely. So I could go to any other computer, log in with my account, and actually access these libraries as well. Okay, so that's what these libraries allow me to do. And these are my local libraries. These are a lot of libraries that I have locally that I store when I'm working with any cases or thing like that. This is where my local libraries. So these are my local libraries. These are in my hard drive. They're not managed. They're not on the cloud. These are my local libraries right here. These right here. All these other ones are on the cloud. Okay, very well. Now, design blocks are predefined designs that are available. That way you could actually add them to your schematic and add them to the board as well. So let's say you have a multi-channel design. You could only create one. It's possible to just create one channel, one schematic, one board layout, and then you could actually use a design multiple times. So that way you don't have to be relaying out each channel every time. So we have some examples here that have been contributed by Adafruit and Spark Fun, and some of the ones that we actually have made ourselves. So this is under the examples folder. These are the ones that we have created ourselves. And this is our local ones right here. These are some that I've been working with as well. Now, if you want to create your own design block, it's really simple to do. Once you create the schematic at the board, you just click on File, Create Design Block, and that's it. It's like a library, but it's not a library itself because it consists of multiple components and connections as well. So you don't have to worry about only storing one component. You're actually storing an entire circuit, a sub-circuit, okay, as well. Here we have our design rules. We have many design rules that have been contributed by multiple board houses. These are rules by which you should restrict your board layout to comply with some circuit boards, with circuit board manufacturing and prototype boards. These are the DRU files. Many board houses actually have adopted EAGLE or know about EAGLE well enough to create their own DRU file. That way you could download them as well, and you can add them to this list. These are just the rules by which you should follow on your circuit board. That way it's manufacturable or prototype without any errors. It gives you clearances, it gives you distances, sizes for vias, holes, and so forth. It's just the rules that are going to be, your board is going to be checked against stuff, okay? ULP is a type of a scripting language. It looks like C. We have our script language. Cam job is our export tools. I just did a webinar based on that last week about how to create your manufacturing files. And I will be doing again towards the end of the month. There's a good chance I'll be doing that webinar all over again as well. Spice models and our projects. Spice models, as EAGLE does have, we have incorporated a Spice engine into our schematic editor. And in the Spice models, we have many example files of schematic and boards already created and models that you could actually assign to your passive parts like resistors and diodes and capacitors. You could actually assign those model components, generate connections, and just turn it on and run a simulation on your circuit, on your schematic as well. So let's go ahead and begin designing. So I'm going to need to open up my projects. I'm going to open up my project folder, and here I'm just going to, right here where it says project, I'm going to do a right click, And I'm going to select brand new project, as you can see here. As you can see, it lets me create a project right here. And you'll notice that it has a green dot right next to it right there. Okay, so that means that once I create this project, it's going to be an active project. So I'm going to call it webinar, September 2019. Okay, puts it in alphabetical order. So you can see it's right there. Now this project is active, as you can see the green dot there, but I don't have anything, any defined projects in it yet. I've only created the project. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click it, and I'm going to select brand new and select the option schematic. This is going to bring up the schematic editor, as you could see here. The schematic editor has multiple menus. I'm auto hiding the top menu, but you can see the top menu, the file, edit, draw, tools. That menu, I have it in a system in which it automatically hides. That way I get more design space. Then we have our action toolbar, and then we have a parameter toolbar right here. These are our simulation tools right here. These right here. These are, yes, our file open, convert the schematic to board, how to run a script, how to run a ULP, and our magnifying glasses, our zooming tools. I'm sorry, not magnifying, but our zooming tools here, as well as we have our toolbars here. In Eagle, when you work from board to schematic and the library editor, workspaces, they're all very similar, okay? The functionality of some of them may change initially, but it's in essence is almost the same. That way it makes it really easy. Now, I've set my design manager as well as my selection filters on the right-hand side. Yes, because I like working on the left, but you could easily just grab this and move it around if you want, or you could just right-click here and hide them if you're not going to be using them. Okay. You're not going to be using them. You could just easily hide them. I'm just doing a right click and selection and just, turning it on and off as I need them. Possible. If I needed to create a schematic that has multiple sheets, it's pretty simple. Right here is I'm working on sheet number 1 of a 1 schematic sheet. If I needed 2 sheets, I could click here and select new, and this would give me a second sheet, as you could see right here. Okay? And I could continue making more sheets if necessary. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to add, it's very common practice, is to add a frame to your schematic. Okay. So I'm going to add a frame, and therefore I'm going to be using the add command to add my frame. So I'm going to click here, and I have the frames. I'm going to do it the long way. I'm going to go and click on the add command. And you see all these libraries that you see here that are currently available. Okay, and let me show you exactly how I get all these libraries here available. I got an overwhelming amount of libraries. You could actually tone this down for your own use. And I'll show you exactly how this is done. Let me go back to the Eagle control panel. So I'm going to click on Window and going to go back to the control panel. I'm going to go ahead and expand the library tree here. And if I expand right here where it says Eagle, these are the libraries made by our team. You see this green dot right next to each library? When the dot is green, it means that the library is currently in use. If you don't have a need for that library in your design, and you just don't need that content of the library, it's just, I'm not going to be using any of these components in my library, you could just go ahead and click on the dot, and you'll notice that it went from green to brown. That way, that library will not show up in my when I'm doing the add command. So this will reduce the amount of libraries that I actually need during my design. Okay, I just wanted to show you that capability, and you could do this for any library. These are my own libraries. I could actually turn these off. I don't need them. Now up here, if I do a right click, I could select use none, and I could do the same for right here for my managed library, use none. That way they go all the way, and then I could just enable the libraries that I need. Okay. That's just a quick tip that I wanted to provide you. Now I'm going to do the add command. That way I could just add a frame. The libraries are in alphabetical order, so I'll just go down to the F really quick. I'll go to the frames library, and I like actually using the landscape frame, as you can see here. I'm down to the frames library. I select this library and I click here. Now this is the 00 marker of my screen. Okay, this is 00 right there, as you can see there. I'm just going to do a left click to place it. I'm using the center mouse button. Even though I'm on a Mac, I'm using a regular PC mouse just because I'm just used to it. But you could, if you're on a trackpad, you could actually just pinch and expand and pinch if you prefer having a trackpad. It works exactly the same way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click here on a single left click. Now what happens is once I do a single left click, you'll notice I have another frame on my mouse cursor. In this case, I don't actually need I don't need another frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the escape key and look what happens. It brings me back to the add dialog box. Now I could select the other components that I'll be needing in my design. So in my design, it's just using a 555 timer to just enable some LEDs depending on the value of the resistors. It's the flashing that's going to be happening on the LEDs. So let me just go ahead and select another component. And in this instance, I'm just going to use the RCL library. So let me go down to the R's. This is the RCL library. And for my design, I'm going to be needing some 4 resistors. So I'll go, and I'm going to use the US style ones. Now, for those of you in Asia, your resistors usually are square box, rectangular style box, and we do have those available on the EU style resistors right here. But I'm going to go ahead and use the US style resistors. So I'm just going to go and use some 1206s resistors, and I actually need 4 of these, and I'll just place them 1, and I'll just line them up here real quick, sort of 2, in order where I think I'm going to be needing them eventually. I did this design a few times before, so I'm hoping I'm able to just do this quickly. Now I'm going to do the escape command again. Now you'll notice this popularity here. This is brand new to 9.5, John. You were asking me about features on 9.5. This is a popularity of those components. Now what we've done is that the developing team has created an algorithm in which it takes a look at EAGLE files that have been made public on GitHub, and they collect that data to see the popularity of that components in a whole, and that's that number that you're getting here. It's based on that. It's that. I'll go ahead and explain this more on Thursday, but that's where this is coming from. This popularity level here as well. Okay, and then I'm going to need a few capacitors from here. I'm going to use the US style capacitors as well, and I'll just use some 1206s as well here. I like using large components. I don't know why. I just feel that I'm more comfortable when I'm soldering. I like using larger components usually. So let me just go ahead and place one here and one down here, which I'll eventually be needing. Now let's go ahead and let's say I'm looking for a component that may not be as simple as this. I don't know all the parts that EAGLE has. So let's look at how they use a search function when I need to find components on my design. Oh, somebody's asking me, can you please show how did you open up the library panel? Again, please. Okay, so I'm assuming you're meaning the add command. So I was in the schematic and I just click here on the add command. It's right here, the add part. And that's how I got to the library right here. Also, if you're using components that you already used in the past, it keeps track of a history. You'll notice that there's a little sliver here, right there. There's like a little sliver. And this actually keeps track of my history of the components that I currently have been using right here. So if you click on there, you'll get this history. That way you could just use components that you've already used as well. But if you want to get a listing of all the libraries, and then you just click on the icon on itself, and that brings up this the control panel. Sorry, the add dialog box. Okay. Now I need a 555 timer now. So here on the bottom of the add dialog box, you're gonna see that I have a search function here. I could search by the name of the component. I could search SMD pads, through-hole pads, surface mount pads, or I could have it search the description. or I could search based on attributes that have been assigned to the component. Attributes is a method by which you could assign additional information to the component, which actually becomes part of the BOM, and it's searchable as well. Now, I need a 555 timer, so I'm going to type 555, okay? If I type 555, you'll notice that now I get some results here of these components that I have, but I like to get even a larger amount of search results. And I could do that by adding some wildcards. As you can see here, I could add a wildcard there. The wildcard is the asterisk. And if I hit enter, I get a much broader amount, because if I type 5555 only, it's only going to search for those exact characters on the description. So it'd have to be 5555 all by itself. Now, if I put wildcards on it, and then it doesn't matter if it has variables in the front or the back, it just needs the content needs to be 555. So now my results are a little bigger or much larger. And I'm just going to use the one from the library called Linear. So here's the one I actually want to use, the Linear library, and I want to use the NE5555. I'm actually going to use the through-hole one later, because I want to switch this. I want to show you how to switch it when we go to the board layout on next webinar. So here's my 555 timer. Now I want to rotate it 180 degrees, so I'm going to right-click to rotate it. And you'll notice right here, how's the rotation work? I go 1, 2, see, as it rotates. And then I'm going to hit my middle mouse button because I want to mirror it. So I want to flip it. Okay, I want to flip it. There you go. And as you can see, it flips. You'll see that the mirroring right here happens. So I'm using the middle mouse button. Okay. Very well. Now I'll just place it around here somewhere really quick. As usual, I get another one attached to my mouse cursor. I don't really need it at this time, so I'm going to hit escape. I don't need, I do need some other components, but at this time, I'm just going to hit escape because I'm going to start defining some connections directly on the schematic, and I want to show you how to do that. Now, I can't stress this enough, and I hope John helps me out here. It's imperative that when you're working on a schematic and you're placing components on the schematic, it is imperative that you're always working on a 0.1 inch grid. Here's the grid. It is extremely important that when you're defining connections on a schematic and you're placing components on a schematic, you're always working on a 0.1 inch grid. On the board layout editor, this rule does not apply. But on the schematic editor, it is imperative that you stay on a 0.1 inch grid. If you don't stay on a 0.1 inch grid, there's a really good chance that you're going to define your connections and they're going to be off. So when you go from schematic to board, a lot of your connections will not exist. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to always put on a 0.1 inch grid. If you don't work on a 0.1 inch grid and you do not make connections, we do have a checker, an electrical rule checker that'll let you know that the connection does not exist, that that component is not connected. But you don't want to get to that point. It's really important. Now, if you have to do any type of graphical aspects to your board, you want to put a logo or any type of graphical aspects to the design, and then yes, of course, you can change the grid and draw or import whatever that you're going to do and change that grid. But when it comes to placing components and defining connections, I can't stress enough for you. You need to stay on a 0.1 inch grid. Okay, now how do you define connections in Eagle? It's actually pretty simple. We're going to be using this command right here called the net command. Okay, so as you can see, I only have one schematic sheet going on. So I'm going to use the net command to start defining my connections. So I'm going to click here on net. And I'm going to be making these connections really quick. As you could see, let me hit escape and do this one more time. I'm going to move this resistor just a little bit higher up here where I need it. Okay, click on the net command. As you could see, as I approach the connecting point with the net command active, as I start approaching the connecting point of the component, you notice that a little bubble shows up. That's just letting you know that that's not going to connect to the connecting point. If you're kind of new to Eagle and you prefer to have the connecting points of your components being shown all the time, you could click here on this layer settings icon up here on top, and you could turn on the pins layers right here. Now you'll see a little bubble appear on all your pins, and that's actually the connecting point of your component. Okay, we have it turned off because it kind of adds too much information to the schematic, which may not be necessary. So we usually by default have it turned off, just to let you know. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and turn it off. So by default, it's always turned off. Let me go ahead and turn off the pins layers again. That way you're working. So I'm going to create one connection. I have the net command active, so I'm going to go here. And I need to connect right here. As you can see, there's my connection shows up. I'm going to double click because I want to finish my connection. So I click to finish that connection. Okay. If I select the move command here, I can move one component. I can move this component. Now let's say I would like to select multiple assets and move them in a group environment. That's actually pretty simple. If you have the move command active right there, this group command active, I could click and hold the asset and move it independently. As you can see, I left click and hold, and I move it. Now, if I actually want to move, I can make a selection. Now I'm going to left click and hold on the origin of one of the assets, and as you can see, they move as a group. Therefore, you don't have to be going to the menu to go get another command. The group command is extremely useful. Okay, so as you could see, and then once I hit escape, usually that group will you will just go back to no group. So now I'm able to select the group command and select all the assets that I want to do. And it's at any point in time, I can left click and hold. That way I can move that group of assets, and so the selected assets. Okay, wanted to bring that up really quick because it's very, very useful in the design time. So I'm going to click on the net command and continue defining some more connections that I need to be doing here as well. So I'll connect here, this one here. Please, I'm doing this really fast, so I'm not going to be very detailed as I go about this. I need to put here. Oh, you know what I did forget? I forgot to put the LEDs here. Okay, so let me just go back to the add dialog box. I'm going to click on add and bring go get my LEDs. So I'll just reset my, and I just need some 5mm LEDs. That's what I want to use for this design, for this example. Okay, just use those. I'll put two of these there. One that goes there, and the other one goes here as well. I'll continue working on my connections. Now, I plan to show this to you on our next 30 tips in 30 minute webinar that is coming up soon. But let me show you something really quick here. If I define a connection that is actually, I need a connection that goes from here to here. Okay, now I need this resistor to be part of this network right here. So this is what I do. So let's take a look at the properties of this net. As you can see, the name of the net is called $1 right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this resistor and just move it right here. Now, as you can see, it will split the net and make the appropriate connection. So now this part, this half here is now called $1, and this part over here is called $6. So you don't have to be deleting the connection if you just want to add a component to an existing connection. There's no need to delete them. You could actually just drag, or you could just add the part right there where that net is. It will split the names of the net and actually make that a member of that net. Okay. Just wanted to give you that. We'll be doing more of those in our next tip webinar that we plan to be hosting really soon. So let me just continue doing these connections really quick. Now look what happens when I intersect two nets. Okay. You'll notice that a junction points automatically will show up. Since I did not stop on this intersection here, I do not get a junction point. I do not get a junction point because I just went right over it. If I would have had stopped there and then a connection would have shown up, but since I did not stop there, there's no connection there. Let me go ahead and continue defining all my connections that are necessary for this. I'm double clicking to release once the junction shows up, okay? Just to let you know. Okay, now I want to add my grounds to my connections and my voltages as well. So my trigger, oh, I forgot to connect my trigger. I could have had just gone right here as well. Okay, let me start adding some voltages. Now I'm going to be bringing in some assets to my design, which represent voltage. Okay, so these are components that do not make any contribution to the board layout when it comes to assets, to components. It's only a representation to a power source, okay? And those libraries are called the supply libraries. I'm gonna click the add command again, and I'm gonna now reset my search, and I'm just gonna look under the S for the supply library. I have supply 1 and supply 2. I'm just going to use supply 1. In this case, I'm just going to be using V plus right here. Gotta move the dialog box real quick. I expanded the supply library. Remember, we have two of them, supply 1 and supply 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and select V plus and click OK. And now I need to connect this here to V plus. I need to connect here to V plus. And what's going to happen is that I'm putting V plus there, V plus there. So when I go from schematic to board, those two assets will be automatically connected for me. This here needs to have V plus as well. I'm using the mouse cursor to scroll in. If you're a Mac, as in myself, I'm using the center mouse button, scrolling down. If you're on a PC, you scroll the other way, okay? I'm using the right mouse key to just rotate them in increments of 90 degrees. I place another voltage there, and I don't really need another one. I'll put one over here in middle of space because I'll be needing that one now. Now I need to go get ground because I'm going to be connecting a lot of things to ground. So I connect this one to ground, rotate it. I'm using the left mouse click. I'm just going to go ahead and connect these to ground. I need to connect this guy to ground here, over here. I need to connect him to ground here. And I need to connect ground here as well. Okay, and I'm going to select the net command and start connecting these grounds accordingly. Okay. And if you notice, if I just use the move command and I move this pin here, it automatically gets that green line, letting you know that it actually has connected already. And that one goes to voltage as well. So this one goes to voltage as well. So here, what I'm going to do is I want to make a duplicate of this voltage right here. I'm just clicking on copy. I'm going to select here. I'm going to rotate it. That way I can connect it right there. Okay. So instead of having to do the add command and get it again, I just go ahead and select the copy command, copy the component, and I placed it where I needed it as well. Okay. So there's my connections defined out from my schematic that I'll be needing. Everything is connected to ground. My LED will be blinking depending on these values. Now let's go ahead and assign the values to our components and resistors and so forth. Okay. So, and how do I assign values? I'm going to use the value command. Right here. Here's the value command, and I'm going to select here. And there, I'll go ahead and this is 470 ohms. And value here is 1K. Okay, And these are 220K. These are going to be the exact same. And let me assign the values. Oh, this, I made the mistake of putting this the wrong way. So let me delete this. Click on the delete command and delete this. And make a copy of this capacitor here. Okay, there we go. Now I put the capacitor as I expected it to be. I did a mistake of putting it the wrong way. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the value command and continue assigning values to my discrete elements. So this is 1 microfarad. And here I have 10 nanofarads. It's a real small value. Okay, very well. I put this V plus here by mistake. I'm trying to just go as fast as I can. Okay. Now, how am I going to be bringing power into this component, to this design? The way I'm going to be bringing in power is by, I'm going to use a pin header, a 2-pin header. So I'm going to click on the add command again. And I'm just going to look in the connect library, the pinhead library. So let me go down to the P's, the pinhead library, and I'm just going to select the 1x2 pin header right here. That's what it looks like in 3D. And I'm going to select this one. I'll put that there and cancel. And I'm just going to connect. I'm going to click on move. I'm going to select the power here. I'm going to connect it to here. And I'm going to make a copy of ground. Make a copy of ground. Rotating it. And maybe it's better if I just put it here like this and make a connection. And let me just move this one. That way it looks, that way the pattern looks even. Okay. Now here, the title of my frame is going to be the same title of my schematic. So let's go ahead and save this, and I'll call it the webinar, September. Okay. Once I refresh this, you'll notice that it adopts the name as well. Now the rest of the information, you're going to be inputting it by using text. So I'll be using the text command right here, the text command. And with the text, I'll type in now when you're putting text, you usually want to put this on the symbol layer. So I'm going to use my action toolbar here, my parameter toolbar. That way I could select the correct layer I want to use. I want to use select layer 94 here, and I could change the size. The size is kind of small, so I could work here and use a bigger size here and put that there. And a document number, I could just hit escape. Document number is, click on 1, revision 1, and just place that there. And you could continue. Also, this number here is going to automatically increase as you have more sheets. So let's say, for example, we were to add another sheet to this design and save it. Save it so far. If I go back to sheet number 1, you'll notice that this is sheet number 1 of a 2-page sheet, as you could see there. So as you continue sheets, it will actually keep track of those sheets. Okay. This is as far as I actually wanted to get to, creating a brand new schematic. So we created the schematic. We started adding components and defining some connections. Let's say, for example, I want to create a persistent group in which I could define and manipulate and keep it tagged as a group. So let's say I click and hold to select all the assets that I'm highlighting here. And then I could do a right click and I could select new group, and I could call it, let's say, LED flash. Okay. And as you could see, that group is now actually selected. Now I could actually move this persistent group that I actually have created here. Also, if I have the design manager enabled, and I go here to browser, and I change my selection to, instead of parts, groups. That group will show up here as well. I'm only using one screen this time, so here, groups, and here's that group that I just created, the LED flash. If I select that persistent group that I define, here are all the assets that belong to that persistent group, as you could see here. Okay, so now I could actually, let's say, for example, if I wanted to change one of the footprints, or I need to find parts of that in a very this is a very simple design, but in a very complex design, this is very useful. So you could actually start making different groups. I'll create another group here, and you could see it as it creates here. I'll just click and hold and select all my assets. I'll do a right click. I'll select new group. I'll call it power in. Okay, and I could actually just, since it's kind of out of there, I could just move this in. And now I have my group defined. And as you could see, yes, those are all the assets that belong to my power in selected group that I defined. Okay, so this just covers all the material that I actually wanted to cover today as well. I'll go ahead and open up the platform to any questions that you may have. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and enable. That way I could take a look if there's any questions on YouTube. I'll do my best to answer those as well. Oh, how did I get the design manager to appear? The design manager, if you do not have it enabled, the only thing you need to do is anywhere on one of the menus, doesn't matter which one, on any of the menu toolbars, just do a right click and it will show up there. Just do a right click and right there, I could just turn it off. Now, depending of your what platform, or no, I'm sorry, depending how you've been working with Eagle, the design manager could appear on the left screen, or the left side of the screen, or it could just be it could be floating. If you have a multi-monitor setup, you could actually put the design manager on the other screen if you want to. It doesn't really bother me that much. The screens are usually big enough, but because I like having the board layout or something else on the other side, especially the Eagle control panel, or if I have a board and schematic. But it's just as simple as just going here. It should be as simple as enabling it here. That's all you got to do. And if you just kind of like move, if it's floating, or you want to move it from position, you just click and hold and drag it and dock it wherever you want. You could dock it to the top. You could dock it to the left or the right side as well. So you could determine how you dock it. You just click and drag it and dock it as you need to as well. Okay. Is there any other questions that I can most probably help out today with as well? Well, anybody comes up with any questions, now I'm going to take the opportunity in this section. Well, I didn't set this up for simulation. I will be hosting a simulation. Okay, so I see the question by our YouTube friends. He's asking, how do I simulate this? I actually would be able to turn on, I do not really have models assigned to these components because this is only a getting started webinar, but I do have recorded webinars and presentations on our YouTube channel of how to create how to simulate this. But basically you gotta just right click the component and just start adding models to it. Now for LEDs, for all these passive parts, we do have spice models assigned. You could assign spice models to them as well. So it wouldn't be too difficult to go ahead and maybe simulate this, but I did not set this up for this. This is only a getting started webinar, okay? So please join me on the simulation one when I do it later in the month as well, okay? Let me see. Oh, I have a somebody's asking me if you lose annotation between your board and your schematic. That's kind of a loaded question because it all depends what is the discrepancy between your board and your schematic. You got to run ERC and see what is the discrepancy. If it's only values, well, first of all, the easiest way to take care of that is delete the board and push a brand new one from the schematic, okay? That takes care of that really fast, but you lose your entire layout. So they may not be always the solution. If it's only values that you're having issues with, you could just change the values either in the schematic on the board. That way they become consistent. Okay, there is a ULP that we have called Make Values Consistent that you run from the schematic. So let me go here and click on the ULP icon, and I'll switch to the examples folder. And if I type make here, make values consistent, that will actually extract all the informations, all the values of the components from the schematic and assign them to the board layout. That is one way you could solve it. Now, if you were working on the board with the schematic closed and you added parts and connections, there's going to be a lot more work you're going to have to do to actually get that. So if you go to the YouTube channel, I created a tutorial. It's like a 5-minute tutorial of different scenarios that you could use to recover from when you've lost consistency. Okay, so it all depends. You can always email me directly. Let me put that on the chat as well. I'll put here, the Lourdes, if you don't mind, can you put the support email address for our YouTube friends, if you don't mind? That way they could, if you have something specific and you want to send it to me, go ahead and send it to support.eagle@autodesk.com. That's support.eagle@autodesk.com. Now I evaluate what you have and give you some recommendations, but every scenario is very different as well. Let me see what other questions I have here. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. Okay, so I just wanted to do a few more tips before we go. I always like finishing these presentations with a few tips that you could use. So let me just make a duplicate here of this 555 timer here really quick. Make a early duplicate. And I just wanted to show you a few thoughts that you could use, especially, this is mainly for very large components, okay? Okay, so if I do a right click on the component and I select here breakout pins, I could select breakout all pins and have it and make sure that each net that gets broken out has the name of the pin, okay? Or I could only do selected pins. So for example, I'm just gonna select selected pins. I only wanna break out the V plus and the ground, okay? And I only wanted to have the name of the pin. See, as you could see, it broke out my ground and my V plus. If you have a very large component, this is extremely convenient, okay? This makes it that much easier for you to break out components. Now, let's say if you have a sequence of pins, this is not gonna make absolutely no sense for this component. I just wanna be able to show you this feature though. Okay, so if I click on here on net, okay, and you're gonna see here, you see right here where it says breakout pin, I could select right here, and I'm gonna say, you know what, I wanna call it DB1, and I wanna auto increment this. And I want this to be, let's say I wanted to make 10 grid units. So it's only gonna be 10, it's gonna be, that's still gonna be the length of each one. I'll click OK, and I'll select here. So here goes DB1, sorry, I'm not selecting the pin. I gotta select net, DB2, auto increment, and I want it to be 10 grid units. Click OK. You gotta make sure that you select there, DB2. If I select the other one, DB3. And if I keep on going, it will go DB4, as you could see there. So if you're breaking out a really large BGA, a very large component, this just makes it that much easier for you to break out that component as well, okay? So I just wanted to bring that up really quick. I'm just gonna select all these assets. That way I could just delete them really quick. I just wanted to bring that up as a quick tip today for you to take into consideration. Okay. Okay. Well, I've gone a little bit over the time that I wanted to use, but the Design Manager in Eagle now just gives you the opportunity to really take a look at all the parts on your schematic. You could actually select the components on the schematic. If you wanted, let's say, change the values of the component, you could actually do it from right here if you wanted to. You could do it directly from the design manager, which is extremely convenient instead of having to go and look for those components, or you could actually click and hold and select multiple components and then just change the properties from this point on. So the design manager, we're going to be going into detail, a lot more detail on this webinar, but I just want to let you know that it's available now on the schematic editor. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being with us. It's been a really nice time to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to talk to you again on Thursday. The webinar will remain recorded on YouTube for a little bit, and then we're going to edit it and post it again. If you have any questions, let me go ahead and put my email address on both the chat as well as on the YouTube channel. That way, in case you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me if you want to, okay? So it's support.eagle@autodesk.com. Next Tuesday, we're going to be in Santa Clara hosting. I'll be part of a team that is going to be running a really nice workshop at PCB West. If you guys want to swing by and say hi or have any technical questions, I'll be out there taking care of all your questions, doing some Eagle demonstrations. So if you are in Santa Clara and have plans to participate in PCB West, please come by and say hi. I greatly appreciate it. Okay. Oh, hey, Russell, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. All the way from the UK. That's awesome. Thank you very much. When is part two of the webinar for turning this into a board? I got to look at the schedule. I scheduled it a little later in the month. I think it's in the third week because next week I'm traveling, so I didn't want to schedule any webinars for next week, and so there's been a little bit of shift. Let me take a quick look to see if I could see. Um, Let me see if I could give you that date really, really quick. Let me take a look here. So basically what I'm going to Autodesk.com products Eagle, and I'm going to go take a look at our events page and see if I could see when is part two being hosted. Okay, so um, part two is scheduled for October. Sorry about that. Oh no, yeah, it's scheduled for October. October 10th is going to be part two of this webinar. Apparently there was what happened is that since the release of version 9.5 came out, we scheduled it for next Thursday. We do have already pre-recorded webinars for part two that we've done previously, but I will go ahead and host this in the first week of October. Okay, so you're more than welcome to join me there as well. If you have any questions about it, you're more than welcome to email me directly. Okay. So I have 2 more minutes. I could just show you really quick how to turn this into a board layout. For those of you that want to stay just 1 more minute with me, I got 2 more minutes to go. I'm going to go ahead and say what I've done so far. I'm going to click here where it says generate a switch to board. It's going to prompt me, do you want to create a board based on the schematic? I'm going to say yes. And as you could see, it brought all the assets from the schematic over to the left-hand side of an empty board editor. This is my board space. And what you see in the foreground here is outside my board space. So that's the difference. If you plan to have an electromechanical workflow, you got to make sure that your board outline is sealed. That way, when you move from Eagle to Fusion 360 and you have that bidirectional electromechanical workflow going on, that way Fusion can recognize that there's actually an outline. I could go ahead and select all of my assets and move them into the board editor as I wish here. And I could just click on hold to yes resize my board outline. Okay, I could zoom to fit. You could see you could use the mirror command to start mirroring the components for those of them that are actually going to be on the bottom side of the board. As you can see, we do have a command line. So those of you that like use the icons, or some of us that actually like typing our commands, it doesn't really matter. It works exactly the same way. You could use either way. I could use the mirror command. That will flip the components to the bottom. Now I could start using the route command to start routing my tools. We have alignment tools to make everything line up correctly. And here we also have a design manager, which makes it really easy to find the assets that are being used, or you could actually define groups. You could select the assets and create persistence groups as well. And there's a lot more to do here. When you mean the scale, you mean the board outline? Um, no, not really. Is there a way to bring up a scale? A scale, can I make the board specific? Oh yeah, you can make the board. It's not really a scale. You can type in you could type in the dimensions that you want for the board. You could do that, and just by using the line command on the dimension layer and make it a specific size. Or you could import a board outline that's created in Fusion 360. Yeah, you could go ahead and do that. Um, Stephen, if you cannot get the design manager to appear on the schematic, it's possible that you're using EAGLE 9.4. You have to be using EAGLE 9.5 for that to work. Okay, it doesn't work with EAGLE 9.4. So if you want design manager to show up on your schematic, you got to be using EAGLE 9.5. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, you got it. Well, everybody, thank you very much for the opportunity to show you a little bit more about Eagle, make you a little more proficient. Always, you could always email me at support.eagle@autodesk.com. I will gladly take your questions there and continue our support. And join me on this Thursday. So make sure that you go to autodesk.com/product/eagle. That way you can take a look at our learning page. Give me 1 second. I'll show you that in real quick. Let me stop my share really quick. I'm going to go ahead and share again. Give me one more while I set myself up for this. So this is our website, which is autodesk.com product/eagle. If you go here where it says learning and go to webinars and events, you could see our calendars for our next up and coming webinars that will be Jorge and myself will be hosting. Okay. This is a great series. The signal quality, we'll be doing part 2. I strongly advise everybody to join us. Um, this is mainly if you're kind of new to PCB design. We did part 1. It's already recorded and put on our YouTube channel. Part 2 is coming up really soon on September 17th. You should really consider taking a look at it. It actually is very, very interesting. Do your best to take a look at it before joining this one. And this is the one I was telling you about, 30 tips, 30 minutes. Jorge and I are just going to go at it one on one. giving you those elements that we've been using in Eagle just to make it that much easier. Now, Jorge and I, we usually work with mainly all the defaults. That way, we have the same experience as everybody else when they install Eagle for the very first time. Okay. Wow, the wind has picked up really bad. Just to let you know, I'm in South Florida, and the storm is far away from us, but the wind has picked up quite a bit outside. Um, at Mega 328, no, I do not have a video on that one yet, David. I do not have that one made. We don't have one that really just support that component by itself. Okay, but I'll take that as a recommendation for a future one. Sounds good. Oh, PJ, thank you very much for your comments. That's very kind of you. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much, PJ. Okay, so I think I've covered all the questions, and everybody's kind of up to date. Hey, go out there, design something that's going to make the world better for all of us. Okay, I encourage you to just dive into Eagle and dive into Fusion 360. It's really easy now to just have that electromechanical workflow, and take it from an ECAD guy. I'm not a mechanical guy. I don't have an inclination, but getting up and running with Fusion 360, it took me a short while, but it's really simple to use once you get into it. And the Fusion 360 team has a great YouTube channel and great YouTube videos as well. I've done a few basic ones that you're more than welcome to take a look. So you could create an enclosure really easy from a schematic, or take an existing enclosure and adapt a PCB outline to that by projecting it, and Eagle will actually see it. So really, really easy to go in that bidirectional workflow. Okay, so thank you, everybody. It's really nice to have talked to you, and I'll talk to you really soon again. Okay.